Mercy in the diary of St. Faustina is presented as the greatest attribute of our God. Misericordia, a heart that feels pain, that feels the misery of another. God of everlasting mercy, says the collect, who in the very recurrence of the Paschal feast kindled the faith of the people you have made your own. Increase, we pray, the grace you have bestowed. And this bit we must listen to, because it's both beautiful language and profound theology. That all may grasp and rightly understand in what font they have been washed, by whose Spirit they have been reborn, by whose blood they have been redeemed. The evangelical emphasis on being born again plays on the verse of which this is an echo, but actually it takes it out of the context, for the context is given by the one who uttered it. He goes on to talk about being born of water and the Spirit. And when the Prince of Apostles preached at Pentecost, and when the early apostles in their preaching in general responded to the demands of people, what must they do? They did say simply to believe and to be baptized. So baptism is the participation of the soul in what flowed from Calvary. And what flowed from Calvary was blood and water, grace and mercy. The blood indicating and hinting at what was in the chalice, as we see sometimes in iconography, angels with chalices collecting the blood as it flows from the wounds. And the water, that of baptism, and renewed in the sacrament of penance. We priests unfortunately have the experience that many of the souls that come only rarely to confession have very little to say, and sometimes even only make a general declaration of sorrow. One sometimes has to try and pull out at least one sin, or one cannot really absolve, but only give a blessing. For if there's a denial of specific sin, it means that actually there's no sin. No sin. Whereas those who go frequently have many sins. What is our state? If we think we're okay, then maybe we're in the wrong category. If we knew the shock the soul has 1 second after death, when it sees its reality, nuda cruda, before the divine gaze, we would be less presumptuous in our confessions. And we forget also the education of the centuries. In the mystic communications that come to us, we have always this indication up until a certain point in time. On communion days, do this or that. And even Thérèse of Lisieux was, again, not automatically to go to communion every day. She was ahead of her time in having permission to go more frequently than most. Much earlier time, old Catherine of Siena also had a rare permission, but she had priests around her all the time, but she would never receive without going first to confession. We don't really care about delicacy of conscience. We crash in and out of our communions as into a snack. And meagre are the graces that we receive because we have become too familiar with the All-Holy. Mercy is not therefore to be abused, and the abuse of mercy leads to the illness of hardness of heart. To have the heart circumcised, in the old Semitic expression, is to have it in some way exposed to the divine surgeon. Our heart must be tender. Our heart too must be merciful, not only to man, but to God himself. For God is hurting. When we think of the divine pedagogy and how it was only once a year that the high priest could go into the Devi, of the Holy of Holies, and we compare that with the way that we now aggress our God, yes, aggress our God, we wonder where we're at. The All Holies is physically in our church, tabernacle. And what happens? People go in and out as though they're going into the common. This hurts our God. It gives bad messages to the people of God, and blessings are deflected. Graces also are lost and pushed aside. Often that we may be in some way seen to be important. One can't get a bit of the priesthood and have one's hands half consecrated. The totality of ordination means that one takes a bit of humanity out of humanity and makes it totally God's, somewhat angelic in orientation. That's the divine desire with regard to the protection of the Holy of Holies. So to think that we can celebrate divine mercy in, as it were, making grace cheap, as Padre Pio warned, in just bandying about the precious blood and its merits like that, without contrition, without conditions, this is going to lead to the hardening of the heart. But after all, the Church has the duty of protecting and transmitting the doctrine not of man but of God himself. And what is the doctrine of God himself? The teaching of the Alpha and the Omega. And the Church must listen and not make its own teaching independently of him. This applies to us all. Going back to where I started, our evangelical brothers have that actually before their eyes. The gospel must be listened to. It is in our interest not to be more light-hearted than they are with regard to the absolute of truth. For God is not divided. The Alpha and the Omega is not one. Teacher and then pastor. He is the cosmic Christ who has one only truth, and truth is not divided. Having said that, our merciful gaze must be that of the gaze of the merciful pastor, the shepherd of souls, Christ himself, the good shepherd, who wants the good of souls and does not aggress them. He seeks them where they're at. He does not quench the smouldering flax, and where there is yet a little flame that may perhaps be rekindled, he comes into that. And true application of divine mercy is that. See where the miserable soul is, and there have the heart of Christ. Misericordia is to love the soul in trouble into being. There is a place where peace and mercy meet, where humankind the ancient grace, given in this hour, for us, who in this tender face behold the power that at a time that bid the moments be, I see this gaze that waited long for me. Almost that draw me close to this soft heat that melts in this, the coldness of the heart where all things meet, exempt thy bliss, and in a smile bid me a while drink deep, here where there is a place for those who